Hi guys, welcome to another dorm room review video. In this week's show I'll be talking about Certified Mentalism by Paul Brook. I feel like this has kind of gone under the radar a little bit. It came out the third week of December of 2018 and not a lot of talk, not a lot of buzz around it. And I kind of want to get some started. So this is going to be on Certified Mentalism by Paul Brook. What am I waiting for? I might as well just jump right in here. I'm just going to do like I always do, page through the book, telling you a little bit about each effect as I do so. Certified Mentalism, this is the special edition, so it has some, I think, 4 routines that are not included in the standard edition. And I actually received this as a Christmas gift. It came out, like I said, about the 3rd week of December, maybe the 2nd week of December. And immediately I knew I had to have it. Paul Brook, I like a lot of his material. It's typically very practical, very minimalistic in feel, and I think this kind of sums this book up as well. The book starts off with an effect called sharp prediction, which can be used in conjunction with a drawing duplication, and sometimes you can use it, sometimes you can't, and I can't really say more about it than that. But those times that you can use it, if you can't use it, then it goes unnoticed. Nobody ever knows there was supposed to be anything special. If you can use it, you get an additional hit out of your drawing duplication. And that additional hit comes from something that they don't expect, and it leaves them with a strong impact at the end, which is awesome. The next routine in the book is called The Wrong Order, and it's how you can start off your show. You walk on stage holding a Starbucks drink or a cup, and you say, man, the person got the wrong order today. You select someone in the audience. They decide what drink they would have. And maybe like green tea, and then you open up the drink and that's exactly what's inside is green tea. And then you say, they even got my name wrong, what's your name? And they say their name, maybe Jasmine or whatever, and you turn the cup around, and written on the cup really largely in Sharpie is their name, Jasmine, and they can keep the cup. It's a nice little introduction. Uses a combination of principles. It's very, very simple. There's a little bit going on also that I'm not quite mentioning that takes place in the presentation, but there's really no need to mention that. Again, Paul Brook is very simplistic. It's not one that I would actually use, but it is a really great idea, and it's a lovely way to start the show, to run on stage with this cup of coffee and act like there's a wrong order. I think just that idea for the start of a routine could be really fun to play with. Then we have Sans Loxodonta, I guess is how you say this. And this is basically... This is basically like an intro to a principle that's going to be used in the next few routines in the book, where he basically takes the great elephants in Denmark, and he realized a couple of things about that and how he could make that work for people that even were familiar with it originally and had seen it before, and he figured out how to use that to fool them. And that's where he came up with an effect he calls the Copenhagen Cover-Up, which is a wonderful routine. I absolutely love this routine. So simple, just uses 2 business cards. It's a close-up routine. I wanted to say, as we go through, if it's close-up or stage, sharp prediction is close-up, the wrong order is definitely for stage, and then this Copenhagen Cover-Up could be for either one, but really it's intended for close-up. So essentially the spectator comes up with a place they'd like to go for vacation with you. You read their mind, put a card down on the table, then they come up with a place where their bags get lost at, because that's going to happen. It's a bad experience. Their bags end up somewhere else in a whole different country. They come up with that country. You read their mind, put down a business card, and you nail both thoughts. You're able to predict or read their mind and tell them both what country they wanted to go to and where their bags ended up. It's a really wonderful use of that principle that he discovered and talked about previously. The 5th effect in here is artist block, and it's using that same principle. It's a really fun idea as well. It's a way to do a drawing duplication without them ever having to write a drawing down. So they can just think of a drawing and you could reveal their drawing. It's really that simple, that strong. It could be done on stage, but it's really intended for close-up. You could even use the handling that he uses in the Copenhagen Cover-Up, and instead of predicting a place where they should go and a place where their bags end up, you can actually predict 2 different people's drawings, and that would be a really clean way to do so. And you could do that using this without them ever having to write it down, which is pretty awesome. Then we come to the, I really don't know how to say this word, simulacrum, I think is what it is. And let me read this really quick so I can remember. Yes, okay. This is actually one that I've added into my show. It's a beautiful storyline, and it has a really interesting visual moment. It's really meant for stage. You could do it close up, but not really meant for that. Definitely more meant for stage. And the whole concept is that 2 people come up, they select 2 random words, 2 objects, the performer holds a pad between the two of them, so there's a person here and a person here, and the two people draw their picture at the same time, and they're supposed to match, and you show them and they don't match, and it's kind of bummed out, but then you get a really nice reveal where you can reveal that you actually did know that this person would draw this and this person would draw this. A really clean prediction at the end. I love the story that he tells in it. I took his story, I made it my own, I added some elements, I changed some elements about it, and now it's in my show, and it is a big success. It's really fun to do. You have a great visual struggle that happens on stage. Very fun, very simple. Don't overlook it for its simplicity. Again, that's what Paul Brook is good at, is simple and yet hard-hitting magic. So it's going to be simple. Then we have top-tier psychometry, which is basically you bring a boss on stage, and the boss is able to, just by hearing the sounds of his employees' objects in the bag, he can tell exactly which object belongs to which person. So the boss comes on stage, they're blindfolded, and then you can describe the objects to him or whatever, and that the boss can actually tell which one of his employees that belongs with. So it's a psychometry routine, but the boss does it. And what's really great about that is it makes the boss look like a superstar. So for corporate events, it's wonderful. And then you also get to kind of say, look, here they really like to know their employees. They want to be really personal with them. You know, they know all their employees by heart. You would be amazed. Come on up here and we'll prove that. And it's a really great lead-in for the corporate audience. Only meant for stage, really, and the boss is in on it, but they're in on it in a way that makes them look powerful and strong. It's not like they are an instant stooge or anything. It is still fooling for him, and it's still fooling for the audience, but he is in on it just a little bit. But it's worth the effort. Then we have three-form thought. This one, for me, I can't really get into. It's really meant for close-up. Basically, they think of a couple of shapes and combine them to create an image, and then you show that you predicted that image. But in my mind, this one doesn't fly. I don't think it's as foolproof as what he's kind of demonstrating it. I think that the final reveal is very weak. It just feels like you're not actually revealing anything. I'm not going to say much more on that, but I was not happy with that one. Then we come to Psychic Countdown, which is a wonderful idea. Basically, throughout your show, the audience is handed a stack of double blank cards, and they write down one letter on the alphabet on each card. So they kind of pass the stack around, and each person writes a letter and then moves that to the back of the stack. And this keeps happening until every card has a letter written on it. The cards get picked up by someone from the audience. They bring them all on stage. They put them into two piles on the stage, and the audience decides by clapping which card from the top of the piles will be used. So the whole stack gets brought on stage. It gets separated into two piles by the spectator. And then based on applause, the audience decides if the top card of the left packet should be used or the top card of the right packet should be used. You collect them until there are 9 cards. This is based on the Countdown show, which is popular in the UK. You get 9 cards with letters, you turn it around, the audience tries to form a word as quickly as they can, the largest word that they can using these 9 letters. The audience works it out, they come up with a word, the audience does all this work. Once they've come up with the largest word possible, the spectator on stage opens up an envelope that's been there the whole time, and they read off a script that is written for them where they actually reveal various things. They reveal some of the letters that were chosen, they reveal another little aspect, and then they reveal the actual final word that was selected. And it all is genuinely written on the letter, so you could show it for everyone, you could have it projected on the screen, you could have it blown up to a poster, but it genuinely is written there. It's not like an instant stooge or anything. It's a wonderful concept. It's a really simple idea, and it works. It does work. I've played with it. It works. Yeah, and it's very clean. You are hands off. You never touch the cards from the time they're brought on stage and split up. You never do touch them during any of that. Then we have a business trader routine, which is basically a lie detection type of routine where you can know where a liar is amongst 3 or 4 people while your back is turned, and then you can also basically go into a psychometry reading after that where you hand each person their drawing that they drew. It's a really lovely idea, really cool concept. Then we have the shortest story. This again is a simple method, but it is a wonderful little routine where the audience basically comes up with a Mad Libs type story where they fill in the blank on a classic storyline, and then at the end you reveal that a paper ball you tossed around in the beginning is opened up, and it actually has a poster, a hand-drawn poster that is the exact movie that you just created with your audience. So all of the goofy little words that are filled in that don't really make sense, they are advertised on this poster. So it's really funny. So like, for example, you may have Titanic, but instead of it being a boat, it is a potato, and then it hits a sheep instead of an iceberg, and then, you know, they're floating on a toilet instead of a plank, right? So it's something like that, and then your poster at the end shows a potato and a sheep and a toilet, and it's kind of a scene from the movie. So that's kind of the idea behind it. They can actually select one of 3 different movies to go for, and yet still you get that nice reveal at the end. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I think for this in the book, I think he actually does an envelope prediction. Yeah, so it's actually in an envelope that's hanging. But in one of his lectures, and he did this for the Alakazam Academy, and in that lecture, he actually used a tossed out ball. But you can do it with the envelope for this. Then you have Don't Be Alarmed. I'll be honest, not fond of it. It's for close up. The concept is that you're able to tell the spectator when they would get up, when they would set their alarm for, and then the spectator's able to guess when you would set your alarm for every day. But I'm not very fond of it. I just don't think the method's that strong. Every outcome doesn't really make total sense to me, so I'm not really fond of that. Then we have Authentication, and this is it's a really fun routine based on how to create a really strong password. The audience creates a strong password using 2 random words and then a random string of numbers, and you can actually read the mind of the audience or the participant on stage or predict it, and you can reveal that you knew exactly what word they would select, and they never reveal it out loud. So this is not a one-ahead routine. They never say their choice until the very end, and at the very end you show that you did get it. It's mainly for stage. I guess you could come up with a close-up version, but it's definitely meant for stage. This is also now in my stage show. It's actually the first effect that I do in my show. I think it's a really great opener because it's impossible, but then there's also a level that feels like it could be possible, and I can't really explain more than that without revealing some of the aspects of it. It does definitely feel impossible, and the reveal at the end is very much like, how in the world? But then I think it also leaves room to go because it feels like there's a certain level of possibility, believability, I guess I should say, in the presentation. And I like that. I think it's a good place to start the show, make them start that it's a little bit believable, and then by the end of the show, you're doing things that are just totally impossible and they can't wrap their heads around it. That's how I like to think of it. Then we have chess in the hand, which is a really simple concept, really basic idea about predicting which chess piece someone would name. It's fine and it works. I guess that's all I'll say to it. I think it's a little bit stunted. I don't think it's as impressive, but I know a lot of people are really fond of that routine. Again, it's very simple. Paul Brook classic, very simple method, but a strong outcome at the end. Then we have I don't know how he would want to say this, monosomy? Monoseum? Monosomy? I think monosomy. And monosomy is really, really fun. Basically, a ball is tossed around the audience. They shout out letters whenever they have a ball, and you fill up a pad with all of these different letters. And once all of these letters are filled, someone comes on stage, they randomly select, I think 5 of these letters, maybe 6. And then once they select all these letters, the audience tries to form a word using these randomly selected letters that were called out. And eventually a word is formed, and you reveal that paper ball that you've been tossing around to get random people. They open it up, and it has the word that was just formed. It's a really great routine. It is so dang simple, but it is getting the most out of this simplicity. It's something that you could do if all of your luggage was lost and you had nothing on you. You could go to a store and you could get everything required for this. You could go to a stationery store and do this routine. You could even probably go down to the front desk and say, hey, here's what I need. Can you get it here? Really simple to do, really great idea. I'm definitely, at one point I thought about using that in my show, but I eventually took it out because I replaced it with something I liked a little bit better. But it is strong enough to use in the show. I kind of did it for my fiance, like just one-on-one. It's not really meant for that. But even in that scenario, which is not ideal, it still fooled her. So it's definitely something that works. It's very bold, so you feel like this is never gonna work while you're doing it. But I have the proof. I can say without a shadow of a doubt that it works, and it's very fooling. And it seems like genuinely you are doing what you are claiming to do. Very wonderful. Then we have the password generator. It's meant more for close-up. The idea is that the spectator guesses your password and then you guess the spectator's password. It's a lovely idea, very simple to do, but I like it. It gets right down to the point. Yeah, not much more I can say about that. Then we have connect the dots. It's a really interesting concept. Basically, a pad is handed out to the audience and they draw dots, like a dot-to-dot game on the pad, all over the pad. And then it's handed to someone else in the audience, and they number them in any order that they want, number all the dots. And then that pad's brought on stage. Somebody selects which dots to use. They can use 1 through 20. They can use 20 through 40 or whatever number they want. 40 through 60. I don't know how many dots there are. I think it's like 1 to 10, 10 to 20, and 10 to 30, whatever, 20 to 30. And then they connect those dots, and then they try to create an image based on the random lines that were drawn there, and they eventually get an image in mind, and you can reveal what image they're thinking of in their mind, or you can even have a prediction of it and show that you have predicted the exact image that they just drew. A really crazy concept, a lot of combination of ideas, but it comes together to form a really unique routine that's very fun. Then we have the unlimited drawing duplication. It's wonderful. It's really simple. I'm sure it's been done before, but it's written up as if it hasn't been. So maybe it hasn't. I don't know. But it's a really simple concept. Maybe a little bit too basic, but yeah, that's all I'm gonna say on that. It works, and it's a great routine, and I'm sure Paul has used it in his close-up work for a long time. I believe that he has, but it just may not be totally original to him. But it's a nice routine. Then we come to the special edition material, and it starts off with the Sneaky Rogue, which is a wonderful version of Sneak Thief. I don't have a Sneak Thief version that I perform currently, but if I did, I would probably use this one. The basic concept is, I'm not going to go into what they write down because that kind of is part of what this is about, is the presentation. But instead of just writing down like an image or something, they actually write down something from their past, and they each write it on a card. By looking at the card, you can tell each person what they wrote down. You can basically hand the cards back to the people. But then at the end, you have a really nice moment because the paper ball that you use to bring people up on stage is opened, and it actually reveals the final person's thing that they wrote down. So it's a really wonderful punch that you do not see coming, because you're just going down the line revealing everybody's thing. Obviously the last person, it belongs to them because there's only one card left, but you open up the piece of paper that you had in the beginning, and you had predicted what they would write down. It seems totally impossible. It's a really great idea, really wonderful concept, really fun presentation. Maybe a little bit on the edgy side in presentation. That's why I wouldn't use this currently, is because it doesn't really go with my character and my personal beliefs about my show. But for some people, especially an edgier audience, edgier performer, it is a perfect presentation idea. But the method is very solid as well. Then we have Unquestionably Mental. Sorry, I'm trying to read to make sure. Yeah, this is basically his version of a classic effect. I was debating whether I was going to say what the classic effect is or not. I guess I won't, out of respect for him. But it's based on a very classic effect that's been around for a very long time. It's basically his presentation for how you can present it and get a whole group involved with it, make it feel like a group effort, and kind of have the table rooting for you whenever you come up to them. It's a great routine. It may not be quite as, it's kind of a good opener, I think, because it still has a level of possibility to it. It still feels very plausible. It's impossible, but it's definitely like, well, he only had a 1 in 20 chance or whatever. So it's kind of along that frame of thought, if you want to think of it like that. It's amazing, it's impressive, but then at the end they're also like, well, but there was a 1 in 20 chance he could have gotten it. And because of that, I think that's a great starting point, maybe leaping from that right into his double drawing duplication routine, and then that would be a really great set. Then we have that Paul Brook routine, which is kind of synonymous with Paul Brook's work. I think this is a wonderful routine. It's the unlimited drawing duplication from earlier is what the method is, but the presentation is beautiful, and I don't want to talk too much about it, but basically it involves the entire table. Everyone gets involved from the beginning to the end, and you work with the most skeptic person at the table, and you work with the most susceptible person at the table. So you're working with 2 people, and there's a reason for working with both of them. There's a reason for the change in procedure that has to happen with both of them. It is a really wonderful concept for a routine. It's a great way to go up to a close-up, go up to a table close-up and get them all involved and all ready to see your performance. And finally, I'm pretty sure this is the last one. I'm just going to make sure. I know it is, though. The last one in here is the 3-phase book test. And the 3-phase book test is Paul Brook's version of the book test. And it's basically using a book test 3 times in 3 different ways. Each time it's more impossible. So the first time the spectator thinks of a word, the second time you very clearly are not looking at the word, there's no way you could get a peek of it, you still reveal the word. The third time they open the book up anywhere they want, think of any word on the page, and you reveal the word. So it's a 3-phase book test where each phase builds and gets more impossible, and it's a wonderful cancellation of methods along the way, so that at the end they are just left feeling like, how could this have been possible? Because they saw each step of the way, the methods being shown that they weren't possible. From the first method, first time you do it, they may have an idea, you immediately say, well, that's not it, and you prove that. The second time, they may have some idea, but definitely not as much. You immediately discard that, get that out of the way. You end with this big final moment, which is just totally impossible. Feels like you could not possibly do that. And that is the end of Certified Mentalism by Paul Brook. Again, this is the special edition. That's where those 4 extra routines came in the back, but the standard edition has everything above that. It's a really great book. There's some really wonderful pieces in here. I feel this way about all of Paul Brook's work. I feel that he's kind of hit or miss, and I think it's just based on my personality and his personality when it comes to our performing philosophies. And I feel like this book's the same way. There are some really strong hits in here, and there's a couple of duds. I was very honest about that in the review. There were those 2 or 3 routines that I was like, I don't really like these. And that kind of happens with every book. But the strong effects in this are worth getting the book for, because they really are wonderful, and they can be done at the drop of a hat. They require very little setup, or they require props that can be bought at a stationery store. They're all very minimalistic in their approach, and I am always striving more and more towards that. The longer I'm in this business, I realize that minimalism is what I really connect to and I really like. And there's some great theatrical pieces as well. His stage work is very theatrical. It's very fun to watch. There's always an engaging presentation or an engaging aspect of the performance. And as I said, 2 of the routines in this book are now in my show. One of them is my opener, and then one of them is like the 3rd routine in my show. It's a wonderful, wonderful book. I highly recommend it. Certified Mentalism by Paul Brook. Go ahead and pick up your copy now. I don't think you'll be disappointed. There's something for everyone in these pages.